Absolutely, yeah, pre or post, even, right? So to get muscle recruitment, you can do it pre, and just do a couple short bouts, or to decompress afterwards. You know, you can do kind of longer bouts, and just sort of relaxedly go through it.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Blutzer here with Doug Larson and Kenny Kane. And we're up here at Innovative Results, and we're hanging out with the founder, Aaron Guyett. He's a master coach for Onnit's battle ropes. And we're going to get into energy systems, metabolic pathways, and you use the battle ropes to teach that and train that.
Correct.
Yeah, and so that's much different than what we normally encounter. With CrossFit, we think about metabolic pathways, and we think about metcons,
Correct.
or we might think about an airdyne,
something
like that.
Yeah.
And usually, I'm using different tools if I'm wanting to work one pathway versus another.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you using the battle ropes to train everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the battle ropes, once you understand the principles of the metabolic pathways, then you can carry that into any tool. You can go back to your barbell, you can go back to kettlebell, you can go to an airdyne, and now you know how to program for alactic power, or for lactic, which is our strength component, or the aerobic side of it. And that's the beauty of the battle ropes, is it forces you to come away from the normal, I think, preconceived notion of force, which is either calisthenics, where I'm moving my body and I'm being explosive or not explosive and just running whatever with body weight, or an amplification of gravity, which is kettlebell or barbell or mace or steel club or any of the other tools that we use at any or most gyms. So we tend to kind of pigeonhole ourselves or paint ourselves into a corner, like this is the only way to amplify force to get enough force load to work this particular metabolic pathway. But if you use a rope and you're able to get into power, or the alactic metabolic pathway, or you're able to get into strength, or you're able to work aerobic, well, now you realize, force is force is force. It doesn't matter which tool I'm using. If I can get to it with a battle rope, well, now I kind of understand the concepts of force and using the force with any other tool, whether it's an amplification of gravity or not.
I think it's cool to use a single tool to do all that, because you're actually focusing on the energy system and not so much worried about this tool's for this or that. And I see where it can shore up any confusion.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, can you tell us about your fitness career? What got you to the point where you're working with battle ropes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first I started with the Marine Corps, just being really into fitness in high school, and then kind of getting smashed in the Marine Corps. But realizing that that's not the way to build the best bodies, whether it's aesthetically or for performance, for athletes. You can't just smash yourself into the ground and then pick yourself back up and smash yourself in the ground. Do that consistently and create a good body. So I got interested in just movement and lifting weights, and whether it was, for me at that point, it was dumbbells, barbells, and sort of your traditional bodybuilding and powerlifting components. I wanted to get huge and strong because I was scrawny, because I ran too much and humped too much weight or did too many rucks in the Marine Corps. So I wanted to get big and strong, and started to learn about that, and then got into fitness at a LA Fitness. I started just doing basic personal training at a LA Fitness. And then from that point, I realized I think I can do this better. So kind of ventured off onto my own, started Innovative Results in August of 2005, and realized that there's way more than just bodybuilding. There's way more than just powerlifting out there, and just immersed myself. And the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. And that's still the case today. I keep learning more and realize, dang, man, there's so much that I don't know. And not too long ago, we were actually on the other side of this building, Innovative Results, and we hosted John Brookfield, who is really like the guy that brought battle ropes into the fitness industry. And got a level 1 certification from him, level 2 certification from him, and then got an opportunity with On It Academy because I had been doing it for almost a decade, doing battle ropes for almost a decade. They said, "Hey, you wanna write our curriculum and teach our certification?" And I said, "Oh, let me call John Brookfield and make sure that's okay." Called him, emailed back and forth, and basically he gave me the ominous dominus. So boom, here I am. With great opportunity to teach metabolic pathways, force through a tool that I've been using for almost a decade to help athletes, help special ops guys, help military guys, and help just average Janes and Joes get better with their body, better at what they do, better movement.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think about strength and conditioning, and we just think about conditioning as the time when you're breathing hard.
Yeah.
Could you break down the different types of conditioning that exist?
Yeah, I mean,
or why it's important too that we would want to break this up.
Yeah. So if we're let's say I'm training a special ops guy, or even a CrossFit guy, like I know that dude needs an equal amount of all his metabolic pathways, because the special ops guy, he's gonna potentially have to hike or hump or walk or run for a significant period of time, or fight maybe in a battle for a significant period of time. So that's aerobic, right? That's being able to just continue to do movement for long periods of time. And it's not your high level, high intensity movement, but at some point, if somebody comes up to him and tries to take him down, he's going to need to be explosive as he can be at that time, to pick him up, put him down, wrap him up, do whatever he has to do. So he's going to need alactic or power, explosive power as well. So I can condition explosive power, or the alactic metabolic pathway, that chemical interchange in our body that is able to nervously recruit as much muscle, contract those muscles explosively to take that guy down in the way in which he decides to do it, but then be able to go back to, okay, now the guy's wrapped up, he's zip tied on the floor, now we got to pick him up and we got to carry him because our vehicle broke down or whatever. We got to carry him 8 miles back to our forward base, or forward observation base, or our assembly area, or whatever it is, right? So now I need aerobic capacity again. So you can condition alactic, which is the power. You can condition lactic, which is that strength, and you can condition the aerobic or the endurance part of any person, any athlete. Average Janes and Joes need explosive power too. I mean, little Lily runs out into the street. Mom needs to be able to shoot out there as fast as possible, pick her up, and get her out of the road. So you want every single person to at least have a little bit of that access. But then as a coach, what I'm looking for is, hey, what is your point B? What are you trying to get better at? If you're, a football player, you're whatever. If I can understand that from a metabolic conditioning or metabolic pathway standpoint, now I know what I can start working on throughout his or her training regimen and training programs, training cycle, up to whatever it is that they're going to work toward, right?
So this gym's a little bit, not a little bit, it's a lot unique compared to like your standard CrossFit gym or strength conditioning facility. Like, it's almost the opposite in the sense that, you have a matted kind of weight room type area over there. That's a very small percentage of the gym, and then the rest of the gym is mostly open space and turf.
Yep.
Whereas most other gyms that I've been to, if I'm to stereotype them, they have mostly weight room space and then like a little bit of turf. So it's kind of the opposite. Like, how did you choose to structure this gym like this?
I think there's so much to explore in human movement, and we tend to just see the tip of the iceberg in terms of human movement when we go and train strength and conditioning, or we go to, whether it's a CrossFit gym or a big box type corporate space, or another boutique fitness gym. We think of strength and conditioning as weights, and we've sort of got that preconceived notion. So this forces you to see it from a different perspective. Let's explore this first, and then we can add some other tools and components. So by making it open, it just kind of frees you up mentally to jump into a new kind of paradigm or a new way of thinking about movement and about strength and conditioning. And it's also really incredible to host events because a lot of times events need just open space. So if you're peering around weight equipment and stuff like that to try to see the presenter, it's kind of difficult. So also from a business standpoint and hosting events, it works really well too. But really, traditionally, that was actually my former business partner, Corey Beasley, and I. That was what we kind of wanted. We wanted to force people into a new paradigm. See this as a fitness playground more than a box to get to lift up heavy weights and then put them down. We do want to do that too, and that's really important in everybody's programming, right? If I'm trying to work lactic metabolic training or metabolic conditioning, I that's a great and easy way, and it's the tried and true method that's been pervasive in the industry for a long time. So I can work it that way, and so we do. But this just forces that mindset. It just opens it up and makes it totally different.
Can we just go 2 steps back, if you don't mind, AA Ron, and if I can call you AA Ron.
I like that, yeah.
And just to help some of our viewers and listeners get clarity on the energy systems, because I think a lot of the people that follow this show think of energy systems in the way that some textbooks often refer to them, or the CrossFit certifications refer to them. So a lot of CrossFitters sort of understand it as you've got this oxidative, this longer one,
Correct.
Then you got a glycolytic, then you got a phosphogenic. And I know that there's some overlapping similarities,
Correct.
but can you just clarify that just so that we are clear on sort of language understanding moving forward? Because I'd like to hear your description of that.
Yeah. The phosphogenic, right? ATP, CP interchange happening. That's your power, right? Here's the thing. You call it phosphogenic. You call it the glycolytic cycle, right? Which is the lactic
right.
that I'm referring to, or strength. And that's really when you feel the pump, right? Like that's what a lot of bodybuilders are going after. If you're trying to create hypertrophy for your athlete, that's what you're going after. And then oxidative, that aerobic, right? With oxygen, movement with the use of oxygen. When your body, like, we don't get to tell, like, hey, bicep, you're gonna use the ATP CP. Like, we don't get to decide that. Our body sort of naturally decides that stuff. So when I do something explosive, I still might be using some of my oxidative or aerobic or endurance musculature, and I might be using some of the glycolytic cycle, right, or glycolysis or lactic, right, that I was referring to. But if it's a massive movement, because of the way our body recruits, right, at first, we have to learn how to recruit that much muscle and move it all at the same time. So if I pick up this, I kind of know already what that weighs like. But if I try to pick up, the turf or you or
I'm 400 pounds, so
yeah. So if I try to pick up 400 pounds,
solid
Kenny,
muscle.
just jacked.
At first I might be like, oh, whoa, I can't really move that. So then the body naturally, nervous system recruits more, tries to fire more muscles, more and more and more and more and more. And before you know it, now I'm tapping into that ATP CP in order to actually create that movement. I'm using as many muscle fibers as my body can create. So to get effective at it, you need to do it more than once, right?
So if I got it right, then what you were doing is understanding how this works physiologically, but then people coming off the street don't necessarily know that, and then you're using the single modality of the battle ropes to, you go, we got this big open space, grab a rope, we're going to do this for a short amount of time, we're going to do it for a long amount of time, and then we're going to do it somewhere in the middle, and you're going to understand how those things feel differently. And then from there, now you've got a platform to understand what the hell me, AA Ron, as your coach, is going to tell you what to do.
Absolutely.
And you're going to get stronger. And okay, copy.
Well, and so then the beauty of the rope, right, is if I have a maximum amount of muscle recruitment, if I'm trying to tap into that ATP CP, it might take me a couple of sets to really get that, right, maximum force production.
Right.
But the cool part with the rope, I will see the rope move bigger and bigger and further and further. And so I can set myself away or closer to that anchor to now see how much force am I generating, right? And then now as a coach, I can immediately change the dynamic or immediately change the variables to get more or less out of my athlete. Okay, oh, you're doing too much. We're trying to hit lactic, so settle it down a little bit. We don't need the wave to go that far. We don't need the wave that big. Let's do this instead. You know, or
it's funny that you say that. Periodically, when I've got clients training with battle ropes, and just that wave, you know, I'll either say, you know, you need to do X amount of swings or reps on the ropes, and then, you know, the first set it's like coiling all the way to the thing, and by the fifth set it's like
It's a good sound effect.
Yeah. Well, it's just sort of like, and they're like, it's still a rep. I'm like, no, not so much. But it's, you know, our qualifications for reps and other things a little bit easier. But, you know, I think it's such I love it as a tool. I think it's sort of underused right now in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's really
fitness.
easy to coach.
Yeah.
Right. You can, if you screw it up, your wave just looks like crap. That's it.
Right.
You're not jacking yourself up. If it's too much, you just let go.
Is that one of the reasons why you chose to use the ropes? Because you felt like maybe some of the other things used were, you know, jacking people up?
Actually, I first chose to do the ropes because
you were a beat-up Marine?
Yeah, because I was beat up. No, it was actually because John Brookfield made it look. If you look at him, he's like the nicest older gentleman that you can see. I mean, he wears sweats. He wears a T-shirt. You know, he has a little bit of extra cushion, and you wouldn't think anything of him. He holds some of the like greatest feats of strength in America, in the world, right? Like ripping decks of cards like 50 in a minute. He's pulling semi trucks.
That's a thing.
He's bending like steel. Yeah, right. He's bending steel and putting it into you know, mail boxes. Or mailer boxes or whatever. The guy's incredible, and so I watched him on the ropes. Not only is he incredible with strength, but then he goes forever, and he's just talking the whole time, like, oh yeah, and this is what, you know, we're just kind of creating waves, and yep, here we go. And then you get up to it, and you do it, and it's like the sound effect that you made, and you just feel pathetic. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be pathetic. I want to be like that guy. Yeah. What do I got to do? And so I just kind of, you know, dove in head first. So that's originally, but then I realized. So when you use the rope, it's purely concentric, right? There's not a whole lot of eccentric. So you want something in season that's going to keep you from getting sore, but still maximize your performance. Ropes are your game, right? That's your deal. It's purely concentric. It's like doing the concentric, you know,
clever.
Olympic lift or whatever, and then just dropping the load. Yeah. It's the same thing, but with a rope. The chance for injury is severely decreased, right? There's not a whole lot of impact happening. Right, because it's a wave, and it's not like, you know, you're not pounding. Obviously, if you jump or something like that, then you're going to have to deal with the impacts of that. But otherwise, you can create a ton of explosive power with a really thick and really long rope.
Yeah. Okay, that was your chance. That was your chance, dude.
I teed it up.
I teed it up. He paused. He did the whole thing, dude.
But lots.
Well,
feels like the target was way too easy.
That, and we opened the show. I don't know if this was recorded, but Mike opened the show, or as we started recording, ketones in your butt. And so
I wasn't recording that yet.
And so I actually jumped 3 spaces from that to getting ketones in the butt.
You passed the brain-butt-blood barrier.
Butt-brain barrier.
It's an important barrier to cross every once in a while with either coffee or ketones.
Yeah. This is an essential. It's like an essential amino acid. It's like you don't have a full protein if you don't do that.
There's one missing.
You don't have a full life if this doesn't happen.
So what were you saying about thick,
something about
juicy,
thick veiny
plump,
ropes?
Juicy, plump, long and thick,
throbbing rope. Okay.
We just went 50 shades of grayer.
Yeah.
I think, right there.
I can. This just came up. Since we just derailed for a moment, let's go full derail. Okay. I was just recalling the story when I put my index finger into a car door, watched it close, and went, that's not good, and then unlocked the car, and then went to Kaiser, which was my medical provider at the time. Now, while there, the nurse wasn't very pleased with my ability to not tolerate pain. And he kept saying things like, well, you shouldn't be able to feel your finger. And I'm like, I do. And I would like some more stuff in there because it's a sensitive area, a lot of nerves. And anyway, he started to come up with a couple of stories of people that had come into Kaiser, one of which was an example of a couple. The fella in the couple was about 50. The girl in the couple was in her mid-20s. They thought it would be a good idea for her to take plaster of Paris and mold it around his erect penis while he was excited. Well, there was a point at which the blood came out of the penis. However, the plaster of Paris had dried at that point. So he had to come to the emergency room for an emergency circumcision under local anesthesia to help get all the plaster of Paris off. Yeah. Soak that up. Anyway, back to thick fanny ropes and training. Mike just went into a spot. We went full derail, and then you guys went, Kenny, you missed one, but I feel like
you made up for it.
Made up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to make me speechless. Good job.
We're under the naive assumption that was done sober.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I love that was the idea at some point, though. Baby, who has plaster of Paris? Unless you're a sixth grader making a science.
I was gonna say I grew up with that shit.
Yeah, but
kid.
Maybe they just were inspired by the kids, and maybe there was some other stuff involved. But
honey, I brought home plaster of Paris. You know what that means. No, I don't know what that means. Walk me through this. I'm a little concerned right now.
Oh man,
I'll be doing some research on the internet tonight.
Yes, I know. Unfortunately, I will too. Now I have to find out more about this.
This was the 90s, right before the information superhighway, as it used to be called in the early 90s, was even a thing, really, that people knew about. So
massive amounts of power.
Amounts of power.
Yeah, we went full derail, so we can easily jump into another subject.
I think it might be a good idea to break here and we come back. I actually want to find out what we should do if we want to get started with the ropes.
Yeah.
So I've seen the ropes. I've played around with them, but I know about 2 moves, and I don't even know if I'm doing it right.
No, I think all of Instagram knows about 2 moves, so we're right on track. This is normal.
Perfect.
All
right, well, let's take a break, and we'll get back to that.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Aaron Guyett, Master Coach for On Academy's Battle Ropes, as well as founder of This Space Innovative Results. And we're just going to go over some basics with the ropes. So what we try to do when we teach the ropes, first thing we want to do is just get familiar with the 2 force dynamic. So we have a dual force dynamic with the battle rope. First force is gravity in the ground. Right. Second force is my relationship with this rope with the anchor. So a lot of times we'll just go static first, right? So I'm going to pull. I can pull with both hands, right? I could tie it off, pull with one hand. I can pull from any angle I want. And that isometric, if I get down on all fours or I stay up standing, is only going to make us a lot stronger in whatever position we use, whether it's in sport or it's in lifting, right? This is a great crossover exercise if you're doing a lot of sagittal plane movement, because now I can move all around. I can get into a bunch and move in a bunch of different planes of motion, right? Just by creating cool waves. So we start with static first just to understand that relationship. And then when we do waves, when we do force through frequency, we try to reestablish that static relationship, but the connection is now the frequency, right? As opposed to just me pulling the rope tight. So actually, if I step further forward, I'm going to create bigger frequency, right? And I'm going to then generate much more force with my body, whether the waves are vertical, they're diagonal, they're lateral. I do oscillations that are circular, right? It doesn't matter, but changing my variable or changing my position in relation to the anchor is what's going to make more force or less force, right? So if I want to create a maximum amount of force, I'm going to want to get Now much closer to the anchor. So now I have to create that same static connection, that same force dynamic between me and the anchor through a frequency that I transmit into this rope. And so my body's movement has to be really good in order for me to create that force or that frequency and that force connection. So here, let's just do a lateral. So now I'm using transverse playing in my upper body and lateral movement in my lower body, which is something that we don't tend to do if we do a lot of squats or deadlifts, right? It's all this sagittal plane movement. So now I want to open that up, right? Create some more force. So obviously maximizing force as I step forward, or I can minimize the force and I can go a little slower, go a little longer, right? Working, at this point it's going to be my aerobic metabolic pathway or metabolic conditioning for that oxidative side of my metabolic pathways or energy systems. And then as I step forward, right, and create more force production, then it brings me into more of that lactic or even alactic, that power, that explosiveness. Same thing with vertical waves. Right, so I can go both at the same time, and we're used to this. This is normal sagittal plane movement, but the beauty of this, I have now no eccentric control, right? So I'm either driving my press down, or I have no eccentric part of the movement, right? I'm driving my press down, or I'm curling and creating a pull. So it's either pushing or pulling with my entire body to create that, again, that static relationship, but now it's through frequency. So this is a great during season exercise. Rope is great during season because you tend to be less sore because it's more concentric, less eccentric. So I'm up and down. So here I'm probably going to be either in my lactic or aerobic. If I can go for over 2 minutes and get those waves to go all the way to the end, that's going to be in my aerobic metabolic pathway. If I can't hit 2 minutes and I get that pump and I can't move anymore and my waves aren't reaching all the way down, now I'm in my lactic range. So I've created that pump, right? And then I stop, I reset, I let that metabolic pathway reset, boom, then I get back on it and I hit it again. And so if I do it in 30-second bouts, where at the end of 30 seconds I'm done, I can't make my waves reach the end. Now if I do that 5 times, that's very similar to doing like 5 sets of 10 or 15 or 20 on weightlifting, but now I have no eccentric load. Right, so I'm generating strength, I'm helping improve that lactic metabolic pathway, but I'm not incurring near as much soreness as if I have the eccentric loads. So sometimes we do want the eccentric load. So this is not the tool to create that eccentric load. You would want to use a different tool. But if you want to mitigate soreness, or you're in season, but you still need to work on that player or that athlete's lactic metabolic pathway or their glycolytic cycle, this is the tool to use, right? So if I want to create more force, maybe I want to hit power, so I'm going to go 5-second bouts or 10-second bouts, time under tension. I'm going to get a lot closer, but I'm going to try to have those waves reach all the way to the anchor. So now, right, 10 seconds, and I've generated as much force production as I can create. And the beauty is, as a coach, I can see if they can't make those waves reach all the way to the end, either A, I need to get a lighter and a smaller rope, or B, I just have them step a couple of steps back. Okay, I want to see that again, but for 10 full seconds, all the way to the end. Go. Then you do your second set, third set, and so on and so forth. And then I can see week to week my athlete progress with their alactic metabolic pathway conditioning, because they'll be able to step closer and closer. So some of that will be nervous adaptations, some of it will be muscular adaptations, but it's definitely going to be also that chemical adaptation of that metabolic pathway. So hopefully that makes sense. So that was lateral waves, vertical waves. Then we like to do a lot of like half kneeling, right, where I'm going to now shut off a lot of the hip down. So I'll have them go half kneeling or full kneeling. And then we'll do diagonal. So diagonal is gonna work all 3 planes. I'm gonna need transverse, I'm gonna need frontal, and I'm gonna need sagittal, all 3 to create this movement in different parts of my body. They're gonna communicate together. It's a pretty compound movement, but now I'm shutting off. I have very little hip down happening to make this movement, or to create that connection again between me, the rope, and the anchor. So I'm here. So I did very, very upper body diagonal waves where I was using a lot of lat, pec, shoulder, bicep, tricep. But then if I want, I can try to create a little bit of internal axial rotation of my femur, a little bit of rotation of my hip, and a little bit of hip hinge, right, with the same movement. And so I'm using more than just my upper body, but creating the same movement. But notice the more of my body I use, I'm gonna slow it down a little bit, right? I'm having to communicate much more movement nervously all the way through my entire body. So that's just a rendition of the diagonal, right? Maybe I want to turn off their hips completely, or maybe my athlete jacked up their knee and they can't use their legs, right? So I can get them in a seated position, right? But when they come out of their knee injury, post-rehab, I can work, right, post-rehab stuff with their knee to get them back into their weightlifting sport, let's say. But I know we need to try to keep their upper body, their scapular health high, their glenohumeral joint health high, and they need to create a lot of strength in their upper body. So maybe I'm gonna have them get strong by staying nice and long through their spine, proud through their chest, and then they're gonna create outside circles. So that's everything, right? I got bicep, I got tricep, I got my abs have to fire to keep me nice and long and strong. My upper back, my lower back, all my scapula is doing this the entire time. It's retracting, protracting, retracting, protracting. Lots of communication, lots of blood flow, major shoulder health, right? Traps, everything's firing. So then I get done with my injury, I go back to the bar. Now I've got access up here. I just got to get the legs strong again. But my upper body doesn't have to catch back up as well because I've been doing my due diligence while my knee was injured so that when I get back, I don't also have issues with my shoulder, my scapula, my vertical core strength, right? Which is obviously really important if we're putting heavy bars up over our head or trying to pull them off the ground, right? So that's a couple of different methods, right? We went from standing to seated. Then obviously we can just tie off the rope and do single rope. So I'm just gonna do a quick tie off. If you wanna get this on video, then we can see the figure 8. All right, so this is about a 50-foot rope. I'm gonna get a little bit of slack here. And the way I'm gonna do this so that the rope doesn't slip, but it's an easy knot to take out, I'm gonna take this rope, I'm gonna swing it over. So this is the rope that I'm tying it off to. So now I get enough tail here. I have an alien head, right, with the rope going through it around the anchor. So alien head, I'm gonna take that alien head, I'm gonna choke it out, and then I'm gonna poke that alien's eyeball out, right? It has one eyeball. Boom, there's your figure 8. Real simple. So I'll do that one more time. So I take the end of my rope, I bring it around the anchor. This is the rope that I'm gonna work with. This is the rope that I'm gonna tie it off with. I'm gonna drape it over that rope. So now I got one rope going through the alien's head, right? One of its eyeballs. I'm gonna poke out its other eyeball by choking it all the way out, all the way around 360, and then boom, poke the eyeball out. So the other eyeball's poked out. Now I've got a nice figure 8 knot that's easy to untie. All I gotta do is stick it back through, simple, right? But then when I cinch it down nice and tight, It's not gonna go anywhere. Cool, so I've got now a single rope. So I'll just go through a full body circle. I'll go through smiles and I'll go through rainbows. So we'll take it out a little bit further here into the beautiful light. So again, if I want to work the entire body, right, work on seeing where my athlete moves well. So maybe they move well in their upper body, or maybe they move well in their hips, or maybe they move well in their foot and ankle, but other stuff needs to catch up. So I could do a full body circle where I come all the way around, up and over, all the way around, up and over. So you're seeing I'm doing a lot of lower body movement to compensate for that circle, a lot of upper body movements and glenohumeral joint on past down the arm, right, to compensate for this movement or to create this movement. And I'm trying to get that circle to go all the way down. If I want to make it easier, I take a step back. If I want to make it harder, I take a step forward. Then maybe I got a fighter or a pitcher or anybody that needs to have good rotation, right, in their hips, good rotation, foot and ankle, good rotation in their thoracic spine. I'll do something where they generate power through rotation, but then add triple extension. So I'll do smiles or I'll do rainbows. So smile is basically, you're just trying to create a smile with the end of this rope. Down and up, stop. Down and up the other way, stop. Right, tons of transverse, lots of triple extension happening, right? So that's our sagittal, right? As well as we still have frontal plane. Lateral movement is happening as well. So I'm here. So I can grip this way, I can grip this way. I never tell anybody the right way to grip. Go off of feel, right? If you can produce better movement this way, then grip this way. If you can produce better movement this way, then go this way. So I'll do the other way now. And again, my waves are going all the way down, so maybe I want to step forward. Okay, it's too hard, take a step back, right? Easy to coach, more or less force production, right? So easy to get that athlete into that metabolic pathway that you want them as a coach. Rainbow, same thing. So now I go up and over the rainbow, boom. Pot of gold, up and over the rainbow, leprechaun, right? Hip to hip, rainbow. So most coaches that see movements like that, they're able to immediately see, this is my athletes that I'm going to use that for, and this is why, right? I have a MMA, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athlete, slams, right? Judo, you're seeing that rainbow is going to be really effective. Even fighters, right? Where I'm punching or overhead or overhand, right? Overhand left, boom, right? That rainbow is going to be huge to maximize force production. Or if I'm coming under here, right? A lot of kicking, right? Is going to use that same generating load, boom, kicking through. So these two movements, you don't see them a whole lot on Instagram. Most of these movements you don't see a whole lot on Instagram, but very powerful movements. If you understand the principles of my body in relation to that anchor through the rope, and then generating force through frequency, now with that force, you dial up or dial down for whichever metabolic pathway you want that client, that athlete to earn. Make your next one your best one.
I call that an estrogen headlock.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's what that is.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
That's all
I'm
you need.
tapping. Yeah.
All right, if I want to get started in battle ropes, what do I do to get started?
Yeah, so I think understanding the relationship between you and the anchor is probably the most important thing. If you go anchored, if you go unanchored, then that's a whole different paradigm. It's a whole different thing. But
So you're tying the battle rope to something, or you're looping it around something.
yeah, whether it's looped around and doubled, right, or you're tying it off, make sure you tie it off well. I've seen and heard of some gnarly incidences where I just make a bunch of knots, and then they were doing some crazy power stuff and then broke their tailbone or whatever. So,
Broke their tailbone.
yeah. So I
they,
teach.
they just fell over backwards.
Yeah,
on
they,
it, fell on
because
their
they were
ass?
like kind of pulling back on it and creating a bunch of waves, and then fell back, broke their tailbone. Yeah, so
You can get injured doing anything.
yeah, anything, right? I'm like, this is crazy. So
Well, we now know, you know, plaster of Paris on the penis and battle ropes can put you in the ER.
correct. Yeah, so a figure eight, we use a figure eight knot, which is like easy to untie. You can do everything you want. You can try to pull it off the anchor with a truck and still untie that knot. So that's kind of a cool, like, hey, getting started if you're going to do a single rope. Tying it off correctly is, I think, a great start. Something that most people don't think about. And then I think understanding that you can do waves in any direction and you can do circles as well. So that relationship between the anchor and the human, or between the anchor and the client or the coach or whatever, right?
Mostly humans.
Yeah, mostly. some dogs. Yeah. We have a couple of dogs we tie up. Yeah.
And periodic marsupial. I saw a kangaroo training in your gym. It was amazing.
So if understanding that relationship, so a lot of times we'll go static first. So pull it tight, and then you feel not only obviously everybody's contending with gravity in the ground. Everybody deals with that. We like that. That's what helps us move well. Without gravity, that would suck. Force production would be nil. But then now you have a new force to contend with, and it's the anchor and the rope force. And so that static relationship is what you try to create when you create your waves, right? If the wave doesn't go all the way to the end, it doesn't really create that static connection between the anchor and the person that's creating whatever sort of wave or oscillation or frequency or stimulation on the rope. So we try to recreate that. And then that gives us kind of our baseline for do I want to create more power, more force production, or less and go longer. And then now I start to adjust my variables to really train the metabolic pathways. And then I can have them go in the frontal plane, so they're lateral, going side to side. And then they're obviously using a lot of transverse when they're doing that. I think transverse is one of the most undertrained and most needed movement patterns of the human body. 90% to 100% of human movement is based off of rotation.
What's up?
So, yeah. So if we're not training it, what's,
Well, I mean, I've had this issue, which is that was an undertrained thing for me, and then it ends up resulting in injury over time.
Correct.
And now you're not in the sport long enough.
Yeah.
As long as you could have been.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, like large part of my training is that. It's not always as sexy.
No.
It's as snatching.
Yeah,
but,
you snatch
it can be
like
really helpful.
300 pounds, like that's going to look cooler than me, moving a 2-inch, 50-foot rope back and forth, side to side for 5 minutes or even 10 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
so this could be a good tool to add in to complement whatever you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Pre or post, even, right? So to get muscle recruitment, you could do it pre and just do a couple short bouts, or to decompress afterwards, you can do kind of longer bouts and just sort of relaxedly go through it. And the cool part is it still does look kind of sexy. I mean, that's why it's so popular on Instagram, that slow-mo alternating wave, right?
Yeah.
Where two waves are coming down. I mean, that looks cool. Maybe not as cool as 300 pounds overhead, but it still looks super rad. And so, yeah, you can train in all the different planes of motion that we can generate. We can use more joints. So actually creating a little bit more or a little bit better nervous communication from central nervous system to peripheral, right? Or the PNS, CNS, PNS connection, right? And then even just understanding our body proprioceptively, understanding how to, throw a hook better, right? You can just train a lateral wave to get that heel coming out, rotating, axial rotation of the femur, rotation of the hip, coming through with the torso, and then coming through with the arm, right? Which is every power movement that we do, whether it's a kick or a punch or a throw or whatever, right? So we can just kind of train those rhythmically and train them both symmetrically. So I want to create the same amount of power this way and the same amount of power or force production this way, force production that way. And so I think then you understand those kind of principles, right? Gravity in the ground, the relationship with the rope to the anchor, and then now I can move it a bunch of different ways, and I want to create that wave or that oscillation to go all the way to the anchor, and now it's just adjusting variables to get what you want from your clients or from yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great compliment to the majority of training that with the people that we generally hang out with, weightlifters, CrossFitters, powerlifters. It's the training in a phone booth, up, down, sagittal plane the whole time.
Yep.
They don't really do a lot of transverse plane work. They don't do a lot of throwing. They don't do a lot of punching, kicking, or just any transverse work done in the gym. So the ropes are a great complement to a kind of a normal training program.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, any time you overuse a particular movement pattern, you're gonna see issues with that, unless you can decompress it, unless you can get it to relax and come out. So then your shoulder works like a shoulder, not like a snatch creator, right? Or a jerk creator, right? Which is a lot of times that's what I think.
What's your talent? I create snatches.
I create jerks
be nice to me.
and snatches.
I have things of value. really big ones.
The bigger, the better.
So we talk a lot about ropes, which are all, of course, super cool. You have lots of interesting implements here, though. Like you got the pegboards over there. You got VersaClimbers. You got sandbags. You got punching bags. You got a kind of a monkey bar setup over here, like parallel bars. Like this is just a unique spot. Like how do you implement all these other tools into your training programs?
I think with education, with responsibility, right, steward them well. A lot of times we'll get a new coach, and because they see all of these cool things, if we give them an opportunity to write some programming, what we end up seeing is like this hodgepodge of all sorts of crap and it's like, okay, so what are you accomplishing? What is the goal? So I think we first think about what is the point B that the client is striving for, or I'm striving for, or we're trying to create in this class or this group setting. Are we trying to build lean body mass? Are we trying to lose body fat? Are we trying to build aerobic capacity? Or are we trying to recruit as much muscle as possible and really increase that force production? What is it? And then in what movement patterns? And then, okay, so what might be the best tool that's going to eliminate the most risk? And we kind of start there, and then as the client or the people get a little bit more technically sound, okay, then we might now introduce some more or some different tools. So I'm not going to immediately have them doing Mace 360s if they can't just do a proper squat, or if they don't have good glenohumeral range of motion in their shoulder, right? So how can I then build that first with maybe a different tool? So maybe I'll get them over on the kettlebell and have them work some basic stuff on the kettlebell or on the rope to sort of open up that range, and then probably doing a lot of body weight, just whether it's flow type stuff or decompressive type stuff at the end, or open chain or closed chain mobility at the beginning, to try to get as much as I can from that. And then, okay, now I'll implement this. Now we can dabble in each thing, but I think smartly is probably the best answer, because there's so much and you just want to use it all. And there's some things here are going to have a lot more risk associated with them, whereas other things are going to have a lot less risk. But if you do a slow and steady approach, it's going to mitigate a lot of the risk as you go along and as you program more and more and more for the client or the class.
Yeah. How much do you encourage your clients to just come in and just play? Like you guys have the innovative results that says the fitness playground. Like that's, I come in here and I look around and I don't think I'm going to follow like a structured workout plan today. I think, I'm just going to come in here and goof around and play the whole day. And eventually, I wouldn't do that every single day necessarily. But like when I walk in here today, I'm not thinking I'm like going to go, do 5x5 back squats. I'm going to come in here and just play.
Yeah.
How much do you encourage your clients to do that, like on their day off or what have you?
Yeah, we actually program that in a lot of times. Actually, the progression that I just wrote for like our small group and classes, I wrote it based around play. And I wanted to make sure that people were playing to attain power in their lower body and upper body, play to attain strength in their lower body and upper body, and then full body, and then play to attain aerobic capacity in their lower body and upper body. That was the whole progression. That's what it was written for. It was play to discover my body and discover movement. And then in the midst of that, you're going to be coached on, okay, what are some issues that I'm seeing? What are some asymmetries? What are some things that we're going to want to deal with in our, pre-mobility, open chain or closed chain mobility at the beginning, or decompression at the end, or maybe some stuff that you're going to want to do afterwards or on other days where when you come in and you play, let's play this way so that you can open up this hip or create more internal rotation of your femur in the hip, or whatever it might be. So yeah, we highly encourage that. We think that's a great way. That's how we learned, right? As kids, at least me, right? I loved recess. Recess was my favorite class. I hated all the other classes. Went outside and just learned how to move my body, swung around on bars, did all, and so then I ended up being a decent athlete. Well, it wasn't because my dad was like drilling me in the backyard. It was because I was playing as much as I possibly could, creating proprioception incidentally, right? Creating body awareness, body control incidentally. And really body awareness, body control is going to be the most significant two things that are going to reduce injury and increase performance. Right.
Yeah, and as adults, most adults don't play at all.
No.
At some point, you stop playing, or
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids now just never play in the first place,
Yeah.
which
Sad.
is really sad. How do you get somebody? So you say you program play, so it's like you create like
Yeah.
a container for it. But
Yeah.
as an adult, if I haven't played in 20 years,
Yeah.
you just kind of see people get in here and get nervous, like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do.
Of course, every single thing that we program, we have 5 levels down and 5 levels up. So when you see those, like that apprehension or that nervousness, we're immediately, going back, regressing whatever it is that we're doing. So we'll do something called knife fighting. And actually, over there we got these little foam sticks or whatever. You want to talk about learning body awareness, body control. That's an incredible way of doing it.
Mhm.
And but if they're afraid of moving around too much, then we'll probably just have them. It becomes a little bit more regimented, a little bit more structured. But it's like, okay, you're just going to do some basic locomotive type movements. You're going to run forward, but you're going to put your toes in. Then you're going to run forward and you're going to put your toes out. Like some real basic stuff that maybe you and I might be like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. But for them, that's hard. So jumping around is going to be maybe a little bit too much for them at that time. But every coach has to be aware of that and has to kind of be on the lookout for that, and then pull them aside and be like, hey, this is okay. Everybody starts somewhere, and you're going to jump into this, before you even realize it. I'm sure, in a week or 2 weeks, you're going to be already, doing this. But let's just learn our body a little bit right now because you seem a little uncertain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also see.
No, go
I
ahead.
also see you have a lot of strongman implements here as well. You got stones and farmers handles and whatnot.
Yeah.
I know you have a strength background. You compete in kettlebell competitions and whatnot. Like how much
Not
like
just
raw
competes, he's the national champ.
national champ. That's right. Give
He
the guy some
competes
credit.
against the Russians, man.
Yeah. I get
Guy's
killed
named
by
Ivan.
the- Yeah.
How much like pure raw strength training do you guys do? Like heavy stuff.
So it's probably about 5% of our clients, do that. We have something that we call active performance, where I'll actually write programming and coach people in specifically that. It's the guys that you have to actually try out to make that group setting, right? To make that class. So we need to know that you have a basic amount of power, a basic amount of strength, a basic amount of aerobic capacity, and you have a basic amount of mobility and range, and you don't have all these crazy injuries, maybe a couple niggles here and there. And then we'll do tire flipping or Atlas stone lifting, because they've already kind of created that basic level strength. Because if you don't have that and you go and try to lift a stone, you have to basically come out of form in order to lift those out of normal deadlift form, right? You're not like straight back. You have to curve your back. It's crazy, right? So, it's a very small amount, but we love having it. It's cool to look at. It's cool visually. But yeah, most of our clientele is not doing it. We used to have actually like a pyramid looking monkey bar set up, and it was the same thing. It was like 3% of our clients could actually do it because
Right.
going up with moving bars just was way too hard. So now we just have it flat and straight across over there, and now we've got more like 25-30% of our clients able to go all the way across on the monkey bars, and they're seeing progression, week to week, day to day, month to month. So it's really cool.
Okay, so you have some standards that you put in place for people before they jump into that type of training. Do you have some type of consistent like assessment process when people come in that you put them through to kind of see where they're at?
Yeah, we do basically like the FMS, the screening, right? And then what I'll do a lot, being a functional range conditioning mobility specialist, I'll do just a lot of assessing on the go, like when they do the warm-up, when they do basic locomotive movements. I'm looking for issues with, rotating joints and do these joints go full range of motion, or do we need to work on the range of motion before we start putting them under load? So that's what I'll do, but most of our coaches, they just run them through your basic FMS, and then we annotate from there, and then start delivering programming, and then coaching them along with that to reduce or get rid of any sort of issues that might have transpired or showed their face in the FMS. And then we do, for every progression, we do your basic, either five rep max with load or without load, pull. So it's either pull up or like an inverted row. And then we'll do a one max set. So it's either under load or body weight. What can you do? We do basic push up, basic dip, and usually the dip is under load. We'll do it like an overhead press. We'll do a front squat. So whether it's kettlebell, they can choose kettlebell or barbell or any other implement if they want to, like a sandbag or something. And the front, if you can do a front squat, you can do a back squat, right? It takes a little bit more, right? Body awareness, a little bit more body control to do that. And then we'll do a basic pull like deadlift. Whether it's, again, kettlebell, or they can do our hex bars, or they can do our barbell. So they kind of choose on that. And those are kind of our basic metrics. Then we have our aerobic metrics, which is 1 minute on the VersaClimber, how many feet can you go? And then we'll do how fast can you do. And they do this one on their own.
Mike wants
because
to
it
do
takes
that
forever.
before we leave. He wants to do 1
how-
minute max feet on the VersaClimber.
I'm thinking
Or how
like
fast
20
you can do a
seconds.
mile.
He wants to
right?
not warm up at all before he does it.
Yeah. Yes.
Ah, here we go.
That's the
Must have
best.
been
Here we
so
go.
cold.
There we
That's
go.
the best.
We'll-
The first time
we'll
I did
stand behind
that,
him and whip him.
it took me a whole day to be able to walk. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Oh, shit.
What did
Yeah.
I just get?
I've heard
myself
it's
into?
one
It's
of the
terrible.
best conditioning tools.
Oh yeah,
It's-
it's
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
they're-
terribly awesome
horrible.
or awesomely
It's horrible.
horrible.
I've never used one.
Dude.
I don't know how I've gotten to this point without
It's-
hopping on one. I do know how. I weightlifted. Just avoided
You
conditioning.
decided, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, they're great. You throw them in the same category as rowing or
Rowing,
airdyne
absolutely.
sprints.
Yeah,
It's kind of like you're saying earlier. It's concentric only. Just burn yourself into the ground metabolically,
Yep.
especially if you're doing super hard intervals. 1 minute on that
Absolutely.
thing at 100%
Yeah.
would fucking wipe me out.
Oh yeah, every time, absolutely.
How do you look at when somebody comes in, their sort of rotational plane movement? I know you were just mentioning some of the sagittal frontal things that you're getting basic diagnostics on, but how is it? I know a lot of coaches in this space are starting to really understand like this. If you're coaching people in any way, or you're a fitness practitioner, this needs to be balanced out. So the things that you're talking about, I'm assuming, are hitting with some degree of resonance with anybody that's listening to the show right now.
Yeah.
But as a master coach, what are you looking for when you see people rotate and twist early when they come in? Do you look for an imbalance side? Are you able to spot the balance side to side, or is that something you see on the rope itself,
Yeah.
or when you put a kettlebell in the hand and say, do a wood chop with it?
Yeah, the rope is the easiest way to see it. You see it in the wave.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see one side's way stronger than the
Yeah.
other. And then a lot of times then you'll look at them and you'll realize that they're not even really rotating cleanly. They're like doing this diagonal thing, right, where they're using almost like triple extension to create their rotation. And so then so correct, let's try to make it smooth and clean across. And then you realize one side rotates way further than the other side. One side has way more power than the other side. But then it makes sense because you ask them, oh, what did you do in high school and college? Oh, as a pitcher. Okay, of course. Of course that's going to be the case. You're going to be so asymmetrical. So for us, obviously asymmetries, it's not if, it's when you get injured. But knowing that, it's like, okay, I'm going to just try to mitigate that asymmetry as much as possible, but I'm probably never going to be able to eliminate it. But if I'm aware of it, and if the client's aware of it, and we're slowly
Progressing towards it, yeah.
progressing, then the chance for injury is dramatically decreased. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen.
Sure.
Obviously, that can always happen. But once you're aware of it, then now you can start coaching that and guiding with that knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Copy.
Word.
Yeah, I think we're going to get in and watch. You're going to teach us some stuff with the ropes.
Heck yeah.
And
Be
then
good.
if you're watching this, you already saw it, because I think we're going to put it at the beginning. Or maybe we'll put it at the end. We'll throw it around. Where can people find more about you?
So if you go battle rope exercises on Instagram is a good one, and then battle rope exercises on Facebook. That's where you're going to see all the workshops that I'll be doing. You may or may not see Equinox if they allow me to go public. They have the choice. They can either make it private for only their trainers or public for other trainers around the area. But you could check out Equinox for that, and then obviously On It Academy. If you check out On It Academy and just look up Battle Ropes, you're going to see any of the certifications that I'm doing with them or for them, and then of course obviously Innovative Results. You can check us out at Innovative Results on Instagram or Innovative Results on Facebook.
Or at the Kettlebell World Championships.
The WAKSC Kettlebell World Champions, Orange Kettlebell Club got me into that whole sport, that whole thing, and we're hosting it next year, last weekend in February again. And there was 500 people this time, almost 500 lifters lifting, which is pretty incredible, from I think it was 26 different countries around the world. So next year is promising to be even bigger. So if you want to watch paint dry for 10 minutes, no, I'm just kidding.
So excited.
No, if you want to watch, if you know what they're doing, right? If you just pick up a kettlebell and try to lift it a couple of times, you realize how freaking hard it is to do that for 10 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Well, as an example, what's the toughest competition you do with kettlebells? And how much do you weigh?
What was the record you set?
So the record. So I did 2 years ago. I attained Master of Sport in all three lifts. I was the first American, first U.S. athlete to do that. To do it in all three lifts, so jerk, snatch, and long cycle in the same competition. And so my jerk numbers were 84. I'm sorry, 84. My snatch numbers were 137, and then my long cycle numbers were 64. And so that's with a 32. Either the jerk or the long cycle was 2 32-kilogram kettlebells, and then snatch is 1 32-kilogram kettlebell. You can't set it down. If you set it down, you're done. With the snatch, you get one hand switch.
Finish him.
So the long cycle, you have a 70-pound kettlebell in each hand, and you do a swing clean.
Yep.
Jerk. And you did how many reps with
so I did
weight?
a 64 with that weight.
So 64 reps in a row with two
Without-
70-pound kettlebells.
You didn't set them down.
Yeah.
Can
Didn't
you
set 'em
rest?
down.
You rest.
You
can
rest in
anywhere.
this position.
You can rest
Or,
anywhere,
yeah,
but
rest
none of it's
overhead.
really resting.
No, you're not. Yeah.
You're just not moving.
Yeah.
You just kind of rest here to kind of like rest the paws a little bit,
Yeah.
like just a wounded pterodactyl. Just
Yeah. You just F my life. Why am I doing this?
and then you go.
And then you do it again.
That's beast.
Yeah.
Pain.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron.